Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Riffhard Podcast. My guest today is a guitar player named Andy Wood, who actually, this is his second time on here. He is a Nashville-based guitar player who has been a session player for all kinds of high-profile artists, but he has his own second solo album coming out August 9th called Charisma. And Andy really is one of the most inspirational people I've talked to on the podcast because he is so deep into what he does. He knows every aspect, every little detail to a granular level of what he's doing, from the technique to the tone, to the feeling behind it, to the intent. And you can just tell that this motherfucker lives it. It's always inspiring talking to him. So without further ado, let's get into it. Andy Wood, welcome back.
Hey, brother. How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, any time. I wanted to talk to you about tone.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I was checking out the brand new single, and the tone. I don't know, man. The tone on it. I feel like. By the way, it's called Shoot the Sun Down. The tone on it is something that I think lots of guitar players strive for, like a clean reverbed, delayed sound that's just very, I don't know, beautiful and ethereal sounding, yet very, very clear.
Yeah.
Where nothing gets lost. Ever the note is very far in front of the effect. However, the effect is still super loud and lush. It's like a dream tone, really. I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
What is going on?
So first things first, when it comes to that thing, I think it's only right to go ahead and acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that is, I'd worship at the altar of Landau and Dan Huff and Eric Johnson and Andy Timmons. So a lot of my inspiration comes from guys like that have that really iridescent reach into the three-dimensional side of tone. I mean, I think that's a given, right? Like Eric Johnson is always obviously the lead violin cello thing that he does, but even his clean tones have that really iridescent kind of thing, but you never lose the quality of the initial note. Andy Timmons has been a bit of a mentor to me and a good friend, and Timmons being around him has really been educational for me and probably, a lot of other guitar players. But I guess really it starts with a fundamental tone that you like. It's before the effects have to happen. And for me, that kind of has been over the past couple of years, big high wattage amplifiers. The lowest wattage amp I use is a Bella, and it's like a 45 watt Bassman kind of thing. However, most of the time I'm using 100 watt amps these days, specifically the Sir SL68. It's behind me. I use that a lot. I have a 69 Marshall just out of shot over my head that used to belong to Eric Johnson. That was, one of his main amps. And so I'm really addicted to like the immediacy of a high wattage amp. It doesn't take time to let the tone kind of sag and fall out forward, which is a cool thing, like with old small watt amps. But I think that's...
And I've noticed it's kind of three-dimensional to begin with.
Yeah. It's like, it's really forward, just really forward and really immediate to begin with. It's easier to add more space and depth to a sound that sits really forward than it is for me to add all this three-dimensional depth to something that is like a little tweed amp that's kind of falling apart, or even a Vox kind of thing, like those Tom Petty records. You know how the amps sound like they're about to fall apart. There's like that, that's a different kind of thing, and definitely has its place. Great tone for sure. It's just when you're doing the vocal lead line thing, I need that immediacy to make the note sit forward. And then from there, you can add in your delay and reverb as you wish. most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, I'm not using any reverb. I actually am using delay in that Andy Timmons, Eric Johnson-y kind of way, which is you really have one delay time, usually around 375, 380, 360, and then another time that is around 500 milliseconds. And instead of it being the old LA trick where one was on one side of you and one was on the other, this is the thing where they spill into each other.
Okay.
So you have this really spillover kind of sound. And as the delays keep cascading into each other, they wash out into a reverb, like naturally. So the cheapest way anyone could achieve this tone is just go out and buy the Andy Timmons Halo, and the very first preset is really it. Now, to address something else on the recording side of this album, I record all my guitar tones dry, so I don't print any reverb or delay at all, and I'll add it in post-production.
Do you do a TI?
No. I print the amp. But I add the delay like...
Yep.
Yeah, post.
All right. Before we get back to this episode, I want to take a minute to talk about Riffhard. Riffhard.com, not the Riffhard Podcast, because this podcast is actually tied to our online school, Riffhard. And if you're new here, it's the world's best online school for modern metal guitarists. We've got hundreds of lessons from guitar players such as Javier Reyes, Jason Richardson, Wes Hawk, Dan Sugarman, Miles Dimitri Baker. Man, I could just keep on going on. Aaron Marshall from Intervals, Mike Stringer of Spirit Box. I'm reading now because I don't want to leave anybody off. Dean Lamb of Arcspire. It just goes on and on. It's like all the best of the best. And you get tons more than just lessons with them. You get instant access when you join, but there's also all kinds of challenges. Like once a month, we do something like 10-day down picking challenge or a 10-day tremolo picking challenge or a 10-day alternate picking challenge where we really guide you through the lessons and make sure that everybody is getting better. We're not just giving you these videos and sending you out into the wilderness to fend for yourself. We are right there with you. We also do 6 songwriting challenges. Like we have a monthly one called King of the Riff, where we give you a brief, like write a Spartan war anthem or write a technical death metal song with like some criteria. And there's prizes that include guitars and cables and all kinds of cool gear. And we also have private Facebook and Discord communities of like mind and supportive people, no assholes. That's really, really important to include. Now, with Riffhard, you also get a subscription to Nail the Mix. They live under the same site. So in Nail the Mix, you get to learn how to mix metal. You also get access to Buster Otoholm's Beginner's Guide to Recording Metal. So if you're just playing guitar and trying to record yourself, you have a band and you want to make demos for your band members, or you want to make your own demos, but you just can't get them to sound anything but garbage, or you just can't get past the starting gate, it's too complicated, we've got you covered. Buster Otoholm will show you how to do it. And also, if you want to take it further and actually learn how to mix, there's no place better than Nail the Mix over at URM Academy, and that's all included with Riffhard subscription. All right, so if that sounds interesting, you want to check it out, go to riffhard.com. I'll see you there, and let's get back into this episode. Okay, awesome. So you printed dry. What about, are you still monitoring effects?
Yeah, I'll put on a little placeholder delay, just like in the process of just to have something,
Mm-hmm.
But James Maslin is the man who mixed the record. Is I guess his stage name would be Jimmy T. Jimmy T works with the Dream Theater guys a lot. Works with Petrucci and those dudes, and he engineered all that stuff. And so I came to him. We actually spent a couple of days. I would kind of tell him what I want the delay to do, and he would work on it, and he would send me a pass, and we kind of go back and forth, even joining in on some live sessions just to do live mix sessions just to talk about the delay. And we ended up at a spot with something that he and I kind of concocted together, to where it's a lot like if you had multiple echo plexes, right? And that's really what the Halo pedal does. I kind of make the same delay patch in any unit that I can. It's like, it's not really tied to a specific unit. It's more just a way of thinking. It's like getting the two delays to spill into each other. The Strymons can do it. I've got a patch on the Fractal stuff that's like that. I mean, any good dual source delay can do what we're talking about. With Jimmy T and myself talking about the lead tone delays, they actually pan around you at different points in the mix. So it gives you that like iridescent, I don't know, like IMAX kind of feel, right? It sounds like you said, it sounds like the initial tones are there, but they're not getting washed out in a ton of effects mix. Like, I think the number one problem is people use too much mix and not enough feedback, right?
Yep, I agree. Except that, but the problem then becomes they don't hear enough effect, and so
I mean, like,
therein lies the problem.
It's the thing that jumps back and forth, and usually the way that I play live is I have my effect mix on an expression pedal, so I'm constantly riding the fader. It's not just a preset live. I'm constantly riding the mix as if I'm just working the volume knob. So in and out of the song, the mix levels are changing on the delays. We just did it kind of together as Jimmy and I were working on the mixes.
Yeah, I mean, on a record, you would, if you're working with a mix engineer that's detail oriented, they will automate that stuff, like the feedback levels and the mix levels.
And manually ride it. So live, that's really what I'm doing with an expression pedal, so I can still essentially self mix as I'm giving it front of house. And that's with my solo stuff. That's with the hired gun stuff with Gary LeVox and the flats and all that kind of stuff too.
For people who have never done that before, I know there's a lot of people listening who have never mixed and who just have a lead patch or something that they use live, or a lead preset that they use for like demos, but haven't like tried to mix. Pro tip, automate your delay levels, your feedback in your mix, to correspond to how notey the part is.
Yeah.
The more notes, the less. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really simple thing, but it's one of those simple things that is pretty game changing once you realize it.
And it works,
Yeah.
It's a process that just works, I think that's really important. And to me, the most important part of the whole process is just making sure you've chose the right guitar and the right amplifier for the part, like that.
Yes.
That's kind of everything. And then from there, you can crank up more or less sauce, right? But you can't change that initial delivery of how the note sounds. And I think a lot of people confuse that sustain and that interaction of the guitar and the amplifier with, oh man, what delay pedal is that? I'm like, that's kind of, after the cart after the horse kind of thing,
Yes, absolutely. I have this thing with recording where I feel like every part you do should have a different guitar on it. 90% of the time, if you're layering guitars on top of each other, I have this rule that if you're going to layer a guitar on top of another guitar, 90% of the time it has to be a different guitar, and it has to be, you have to choose the exact right guitar for the part. But then when you do that, when you take the time to do that, especially with layered types of parts, it makes the mix way, way easier, because they're already kind of naturally sitting where they should be for the part. And the more layered you get, the more of a difference it makes. But it also makes a difference when you're just one guitar, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Shoot the Sundown has a ton of guitar parts on it. It's got baritone parts that you hear at the beginning. It's got like a tremolo baritone that's like that spaghetti westerny kind of sound that you hear, where you can almost see the tumbleweeds, right? It's that kind of tremolo, and like an optotrim kind of thing. And then the chunk guitars are Les Pauls, and I believe they're my Diesel Herbert or maybe Ben Eller's Friedman. We used both of those amps a lot for rhythm parts. I think they're the Herbert on that song though, which is one of my all-time favorite amps because it kind of mixes itself, like you said. Like it's back there, Yep. But yeah, that's an all-time workhorse for me. If I'm having trouble finding a part to fit in a mix, usually I'll go to the Herbert and it'll carve itself.
Just works.
Yeah, it works really well for that, especially on what I call, I kind of subdivide my session into what are the hero guitars and what are the supporting cast guitars. That's just an easy, I don't ever think rhythm and lead, because there's a potential that the rhythm guitars can be the hero guitars.
Yep. That's a good way to look at it.
You know what I mean? Because like look at Dean DeLeo and those STP records. Those are like rhythm parts are the hero parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, so that's
absolutely.
So I think of it in like hero and supporting cast. I think that helps clarify. I think just the way we talk about things before we start to drop in guitars for a session, just the way we verbally say things, it has a tendency to put a predestination or idea on something, and it doesn't give the song a chance to develop itself. And I don't want to sound too heady or too much like a bong or a tie-dye t-shirt or something. But, if you go in and you start labeling your session rhythm left, rhythm right, and you haven't even got your parts dialed in, you're already saying that this is rhythm. You're not saying this is hero, this is supporting cast. I think that helps guide a session, at least from my experience in session work.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, one thing, I'm trying to imagine how I would apply that to my extreme metal context, where, rhythm and lead are very, very much like the same thing on every song. Even if the song changes.
But the hero part would change, right? Like I'm thinking,
yes, absolutely.
Right in my mind, I'm thinking about Lamb of God's song Redneck. The opening riff is just, that's the hero. If there is a hero to the whole song, like that thing is like, that's the hero guitar. Some would argue if it's a rhythm or a lead, it's like irrelevant at that point.
It's a riff.
It's the hero. Like that's the center of the universe. And I think with songs, it's easy to go, or sorry, with traditional music with vocals, it's easy to place that because the vocalist is the hero. Everything else, I mean, like with Running with the Devil, like David Lee Roth is the hero. He is dead center, and then there's Eddie on the right and then Eddie's effects on the left, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it's around the hero. So if you listen to Shoot the Sundown, the opening chugs are the heroes, but they quickly step into the shadows when the main melody, which is like that neck pickup strat sound, comes in. Like now that is the hero. That's the storyteller. Everything else is around that. And through the song, you'll find that a hero part won't be a lead or a riff. It could be either. It could be a rhythm. It could be like, it'll keep changing with each section of a song. And it helps me kind of place the story, and it's with instrumental music, there's not a singer. So placing that hero guitar down the middle when it's time to play the vocal melody line, I kind of come from a pop sensibility when it comes to songwriting because I want it to be memorable. And I don't want my music to sound like 13 riffs that are super glued together that could be interchangeable with any other riff on the record.
Dude.
Like, there's so much music like that. So there's some really great players in guitar that are fantastic technicians and fantastic musicians that don't have a strong sense of storytelling in their songwriting. So they can give you 4 albums and any riff could be in any song of any of the 4 albums. I don't personally enjoy that.
That's my main gripe about modern metal. Actually, what you're saying right now with the hero part, that's a much cooler way to say the thing that I've like said that writers need to figure out exactly what their background, foreground, and middle ground elements are. But that's a much more academic way of saying it. I think that the way saying hero is much more of an inspiring way to say it. And then also when you're communicating that to somebody else.
I think that's an important word you need to say again. It's a much more inspiring way to say something.
Yeah. And when you're communicating that to your mix engineer and you're, instead of being like, okay, so these tracks, these are the foreground. It's not as cool as
care. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm immediately kind of disassociated with this product you're making versus I'm inspired by this art that you're creating.
Yeah, totally.
Mindset starts with how we speak to each other in the studio. Are you pumping out something that you're just going to throw out and hope it gets clicks and likes, or are you making something that you give a shit about?
Absolutely. And are you communicating what the person you're working with should give a shit about too?
That's it, right? Like that's it. So I know we've kind of de-evolved here from the delay point of view, but it's
that's okay.
But you know what? It's the exact same mentality when I'm building my effects around my guitar sound.
Yeah, that makes all the sense.
Is this rotary modulation the hero? Like, I can think of specific examples too, and I don't want to just name drop and song drop, but like when you think of No Quarter, that opening key part that's all water, like that univibe rotary thing, that's as much the hero as the part itself is. And so that means that effect has to be very forward versus Ed's effects on the first 4 Van Halen records, where it was just like some reverb and some kind of slapback on the other side of the mix. Like, that's very much like, if it wasn't there, who cares, kind of, you know what I mean?
The hero is like his savagery.
It's yeah. And like when he would play, in most people that were guitar players panned the stereo anyways, just to hear the mono dry, you know what I mean? It's like, so it wasn't like Ed later in life, like in the Hagar era, which is some of my favorite stuff, like Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and Balance are top tier for me. I love those records. And on those records, his delay sound became part of his sound. It was as important to the sound of the guitar as the gain was, right? Or as the humbuckers were.
Or U2 Edge.
Once he went to that wet, dry, wet sound, like for Pound Cake and those records, he never came out of it. Like, he kept those SDE 3000s the moment they became in his rig till 2015 when he, stopped playing live. It's like, that no longer is a shtick. It's not a gag. Like, I think of a fuzz, like an octafuzz. Like, if you listen to Shoot the Sun Down in the, what I call the solo section, later in the song, I step on this little G&I octafuzz and it does this like Hendrixy Velcro kind of fuzz thing. To me, that's like, now the effect is the gag. Like, that's the shtick. And so it's now the hero sitting forward, versus like the way the delays and are, because those are just supporting casts that are just always there. Like, they're never meant to be heard. They're meant to be missed when you mute them.
Yeah, a couple things come to mind, like Edge, U2, the way delay is just, that is a part of it. Or the song Time Is Running Out by Muse, after the chorus, they go back to the main riff, but with an octaver. It's like the octaver is the hero.
It's the gag, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's like you think about it's like the Nile Rodgers on David Bowie's Let's Dance. Chant, 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 chant. Like, the delays become like the hero. It's like, if you mute that out, it's no longer the David Bowie thing, right?
Absolutely.
And that's just a different approach. Like, there's no right or wrong way. Like, if you look at Jeff Beck or Eric Johnson, the way they use delay, it wasn't meant to be heard. It was meant to be missed if it was muted, right? Because that was just part of the lead approach, right? Like, blues guys and their spring reverbs. Like, every blues guy I know is addicted to reverb. It's just like they got to have pounds of it, But it's not that arena kind of verb that you would hear on like a Neil Sean kind of sound. It's a different kind of thing, right? So there's definitely not right or wrong way to do it. It's all in the flavor and the artistic vision that you want. And I think, when we just cycle back to put a bow on the conversation, with Shoot the Sun Down, it was very much my Western, my space Western. Like that was the soundtrack. Mm-hmm. If somebody had trusted me to make the soundtrack to The Mandalorian, like that's what I think that kind of stuff sounds like.
Fair enough.
Like, or Dune or something. Like I feel like that's the song that would go in Dune,
Totally. It definitely, I could definitely see that. And what I'm wondering, kind of similar topic, but different, is so when you're writing something like that, how much of it is written with that treatment in mind?
Most of it is written with just an idea of a melodic seed in mind. And then I'll paint the entire picture around that. Like I've got a bluesy kind of, I was tracking some session stuff with this Les Paul, and this is like a very rock kind of tone. Like this is just kind of a blues tone. But like if you can hear it, you hear.
Yep.
It's like completely the wrong tone. But I had the kernel in my mind of a major scale, but with a flat 6. So it gives you that Marvel cinematic, John Williams, Hans Zimmer kind of sound, it's not minor, it's not major, it's kind of drifting out there in the ethos.
In the desert.
Yeah. So it's like drifting around out there. And it doesn't really sound like the Arabian Phrygian dominant thing, doesn't sound like that. It's got its own energy. And so that translates to, if I play that on an acoustic guitar or a Strat or that, like if I make it metal, it's still it's like the kernel of center of the universe with that song is that harmony. And so that could have been an acoustic ballad with that harmony, or it could have been, but like to me, it needed big, chuggy, low B. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I want this hypnotic sludge. You've mentioned modern metal a lot. Modern metal is really infatuated with how low can the guitar go and adding strings, and how many things that you can do note wise, complex meter wise, like how many Meshuggahs can be around, how many peripheries can we do?
There's one unit, Meshuggah is a unit of measurement.
It's like, how many of that can we put into it? And I feel like every artist in the genre is really into that right now. It's very in fashion. Let's just say that. So my theory was
polyphias per measure.
Yeah. I was just like, I'm not going to do anything but play a low B and gun. I'm going to heartbeat that. And almost the simplistic idea of the heartbeat becomes like the holding of the watch in the hypnotization. You know what I mean? And I want the listener to kind of drift out before I hit them with the exotic harmony. It's the complete opposite of an Instagram post. You know what I mean? That needs to be flashy in 30 seconds. And for me, it's like, nah, man, you want a song. This song is 6.5 minutes long. I'm not going to just let you open Christmas presents in the first 4 measures. Like, we got to get there. It's got to mean something. Yeah. It's like, it's got to mean something. It's and I think, that's just the style of song it is. And I've written songs that have, plenty of odd measures and way too many notes. I just was like, I was coming at this with a different point of storytelling. And I felt that really, set the mood in the right place for the rest of the record, because it's my way of just holding your hand and saying, look, it's going to be okay. We're going to have a good time on this record, and we're not just going to be blasting your face off every couple of seconds, but you're going to get those moments. And when you do get those moments of like notiness or whatever you want to call it, I wouldn't use this term myself, but like the virtuosic kind of stuff, like that's not every measure of every song. And when it does come up, it's like, it's with purpose. And I think all of that together is all just in the decision making of the kind of story that I wanted to tell, and all the way down to the, you know, the delay or the gain or the amp or whatever. It's like there's a wide palette throughout the record, and I thought that was a very fitting song to kind of lead into it, you know.
Totally. And I think what you just pointed out is why both, I think you got two things happening. First of all, historically, instrumental guitar albums are pretty damn boring.
Oh, no
because
question.
of focus of style over substance, basically.
Right.
And so even before this modern metal, how much craziness can you fit into a measure, things started happening. It was still style over substance in that you'd have a riff, the solo, the riff, or a riff with a solo, riff with a solo, and it was very, very, very cookie cutter. However, I think there's been kind of a renaissance in instrumental guitar music.
I think Guthrie kind of did that with Erotic Cakes. Like Guthrie Govan's Erotic Cakes album was a great way to say, hey, you can have a pop sensibility in a song like Fives or Wonderful Slippery Thing, but it's going to rip your throat out at one point, and you're going to go, what did I just hear? And it's never going to be boring. I think it's like how you're saying it in that Renaissance era. You know, if I had to pinpoint a time, that would be the one for me in the past 20 years, you know?
I think oh yeah, absolutely. And I have to point out that Polyphia are like legitimately a big band. That's something that I could have never envisioned back in the day, that a fully instrumental band of like dork music would become huge like that. Like
they really took advantage of the modern platforms too. They took advantage of YouTube, took advantage of Instagram, and you know, let's talk about just how well they thought about their statement and their story, because the artwork matches the music. They look like they sound. There's a whole thing.
It's phenomenally done.
It's really, really well done. It's a crafted statement, you know.
Yeah, it's something though that gives me hope, because even though I don't actually listen to them, the fact that that's possible in this day and age, I just don't think that would have been possible in the 90s.
Right, because the radio was a thing in the 90s, and now the radio's irrelevant. So now your only job is to connect with listeners. Look at Billy Strings and what he's done with bluegrass music. I mean, he's playing arenas, like headlining Bridgestone Arena in Nashville 3 nights in a row. Like, that's not even like big for instrumental music or bluegrass.
That's just big.
That's just big. Like, you now are compared to Tim McGraw.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy to me. Is like where you see, holy cow, this guy that plays bluegrass and kind of found his lane, blending the Grateful Dead jam band thing with modern stuff, and it's great. It's inspiring, like you said, and it's a way for everyone, you, me, listeners listening to this, to just think that, yeah, man, if you think about your statement and you come up with what you think matters, you put it out for the people, and maybe they'll like it, you know?
If they connect with it, sky's the limit. I mean, this is an instrumental music, but I did notice that Amon Amarth and Cannibal Corpse went on a tour together recently and played Red Rocks. Amon Amarth headlined Red Rocks. And it wasn't a festival. It was just
them.
A show on the tour. Yeah, a stop on the tour. It's a crazy time for music, and I think it is precisely because of the thing that so many people think is an evil force. It's because of things like Spotify and YouTube, that stuff that in another era would have never had the chance now can become, you know, a dominant artist or be huge. It's pretty amazing.
Wolfpack is another great example. And Snarky Puppy, like in the jazz scene, like those guys playing big stages, you know, and that's a great thing. And like you said, man, sky's the limit if you making something somebody cares about.
Yeah. So speaking of crazy music, virtuosic music, I want to talk a bit about your hybrid picking stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Reason being that I've always been blown away by it. I don't even know if like what you do is technically called hybrid picking because I'm not that familiar with the technique. I just know that it's making its way into metal, and it's one of those techniques that the metal players that are kind of on the cutting edge of being awesome are all either good at it or are incorporating it. And it's just the thing that you just see, but it's still, you're not seeing people on the level of the bluegrass players. That shit is insane.
Yeah, it's so a couple of things. Let's hit it in order. Most of what I do is alternate picked, just by the nature of my background. However, there is plenty of hybrid picking in there, especially like fast, wide arpeggios. Like any kind of extended range is easier to facilitate with hybrid picking. Like let's say you have 2 notes a string, 1 note, 2 notes on the next string set. So it's 3 string sets. When you alternate pick, anytime you've got to get in and outside of the strings is a challenge. And so at digga 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 ta, that's not that bad. But when it's like it's like I can't get in and out of the strings like that. So for me, working on the hybrid picking and specifically studying guys that play finger style, I started with Bela Fleck, who's a banjo player, and they use a 3-finger style. And I was trying to learn his stuff. Brent Mason, famous Telecaster player who played with a thumb pick and finger style. And I was trying to learn his stuff with a flat pick and hybrid. And then now with modern guys that I really like, guys like Andre Nieri and Matteo Mancuso, I will sit with their...
Oh, he's insane.
Yeah, he plays with finger style. Andre plays with a flat pick, but his wide arpeggios are done finger style. And so I will work on those things using a flat pick and a technique that I kind of mutated from hanging out with my buddy Tom Quayle. It's a bit like if
he's a badass.
Yeah, he's a great player, man. He's a sweetheart of a guy too. So we like to get together because I pick everything and Tom barely picks everything. So it makes for a great hang, great musical conversation. So if you take, basically it's the idea of like hammer on. So you pick the first note, you hammer on the next one, then your hybrid is the middle string that's by itself. Then that gives your pick a chance to cross over the middle string, right? So that allows you to play those wide arpeggios. I actually just did an Instagram clip on it last week where I'd taken an Andre Nieri thing, and I like unlocking this stuff for.
Hold on, I'm gonna look right now because I have your Instagram pulled up.
I'm playing the pink and black Sir Modern.
The shit is nuts.
You know what I mean? It allows you to play those wide intervallic jumps. And it still maintains a really solid time feel in the pocket, And that's what I like. Because a lot of times sweeping gets a little mushy in the time feel.
Absolutely.
And there's not a lot of definition, and especially if you start rolling back someone's gain who plays like that, it's like cutting off Samson's hair. You know what I mean?
A lot of first note, last note.
Yeah, a lot of first note, last note, and kind of what are we doing in the middle?
Yeah.
Versus this type of technique and approach, it's like this kind of thing. Like I said, I really started this journey when I was maybe 20, 21, and I was trying to learn a lot of Brent Mason stuff and a lot of Bela Fleck stuff. And I knew that I wasn't a strong fingerstyle player. So I set out with purpose to solve an issue. And that's something I still kind of working on to this day, but it allows me to play some pretty funny sounding, bubbly, shreddy things that always make guitar nerds' ears perk up. Right.
So
it's just a mutation of all my friends and influences. It's just a mutated thing.
So you'd consider it like a supplemental technique to what you do most of the time.
Yeah, I think that's the way to think about it. My default technique is to alternate pick and just pick everything. That's what I would do if I was playing a Martin. You know what I mean? Like if I was just playing acoustic guitar, I'd pick every note. And that's a really great sound, and I love that sound because it's so lethal sounding, like the Petrucci thing or Paul Gilbert. It's just, there's such a command and confidence, like Al Di Meola playing with Chick Corea kind of thing. It's just like, just confident sounding. That is like the default thing for me. And if I'm thinking about tapping or legato or bends or slides or anything else, those are all colors to paint with. Again, kind of going into that mentality of like, what color is this going to be? What's my story,
So when you
versus looking at it like, I can do this wild thing, I better put it in every song to remind people how good it's like, I don't really play like that to impress my peers,
like the dude in the local band that just got a Digitech whammy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The guys that are going to NAMM playing in the booths thinking they're in it signed, what I mean? Like, no offense, damn guys.
Yeah, no offense if you got a Digitech whammy, but you don't need to have it in every song.
Yeah, exactly. Like Steve Vai uses it, just not in every song, Yeah.
Or multiple times in every song.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Let's just say that, like, to all our listeners out there, I think the things that we're laughing about, we're not making fun of. We're just saying it's a bit like cheesecake, and cheesecake is awesome, but it's not awesome at every meal for every bite.
No, and it's not awesome if you eat an entire cheesecake.
It's not awesome if you eat an entire, yeah, exactly. So it's just like, that's the way you look at technique or effects or distortion or anything. It's like anything can be awful in the copious amounts,
I will say though, in order to get good at anything, you have to put a disproportionate amount of time into it. So I think when first, and this is kind of what I wanted to ask you next anyways, when you're learning a new technique, or I think not you specifically, you're like the universal you have to kind of over focus on it. And so it makes sense that if you start writing something in the same time period as when you're over focusing on this new technique, that new technique is going to be overrepresented in what you're writing. Hence the local band guy that just got a Digitech whammy and is all about it, probably 1 year down the line won't be using it as often. 2 years down the line, we'll probably know just the 1 or 2 spots on a record to use it. But at first, it's going to be in every song. So when picking up a new technique, like the hybrid stuff, did you do that once you already felt confident with the alternate picking? Like, were you already kind of like at a stable point with your playing to where then you could like over focus or I'm assuming some period of over focus?
Yeah. I think that that's absolutely what happened. I started playing bluegrass when I was 5 years old, and I didn't even start playing electric guitar till I was 17-ish, and like maybe 18, I don't know, somewhere in that range, senior in high school. And by that point, my alternate picking was developed. Like, I was playing fiddle tunes and competing at bluegrass festivals. It's like, I came in second at the world champion mandolin contest when I was 16. Like, I could alternate pick, you know what I mean? So that's not a hashtag humble brag or anything like that. It's just where I was at that point in my life. So that had pretty much laid the foundation for how I was going to approach guitar. And also it was the roadmap for things that I could learn. Like, for instance, learning a John Petrucci, Steve Morse, Al Di Meola, Paul Gilbert thing was far more natural to me than learning a Van Halen, Satriani, Steve Vai thing, because those other guys use so much legato and so much tapping and so much manipulation. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Versus when I heard Steve Morse play 2-meter notes, I'm like, he's just picking everything. So just pick it all. Like, it's just a matter of just learning the notes and just pick everything, right? Like, or you hear Al Di Meola play Spain or something like that. It's just like, just pick it, right? Like, that's now go learn the tune, right? Versus Steve Vai, the first time I saw him like lick his finger and hold it up in the air and play a whole line with his left hand, I was like, this is black magic witchcraft. Like that can't even be done. You know what I mean? And then I understood how amplifiers and compression and gain work to allow the left hand to be able to navigate the instruments. So yeah, I mean, it was like that's what I was at. And so any other technique, including tapping or whatever, or hybrid or whatever, it was all just to serve the purpose of a color. I'm not a great slide player, but I've spent a lot of time on like fake slide sounding things, you know, like, if I have like a, like trying to sound like a slide player with no slide, you know, that was like a big thing for me. All of those kind of little techniques, they were just meant to serve a purpose of expression. And it wasn't something that I necessarily was like, I'm going to write a song around this, or it's like a lot of the songs that I'm writing now are less technique than my very first album that I did when I was 26 years old. But I think the compositions and the songs and the melodic structure and everything is about 100 times better. It's like,
yeah,
it's just the maturity of it, right?
The technique though is kind of at this point baked in.
Yeah, well, I still work on technique. Like that post on Instagram was like last week, and I was working on technique, but it was with the purpose of expression and problem solving, not with the purpose of trying to impress.
Yeah. Do you think though that it's part of the natural life cycle? Like you kind of have to go through that time period of trying to impress, and
I think it's great when people don't ever come out of it. Yeah. Like Yngwie found his thing at 17.
He sure did.
And he just stayed there. Yeah. And it's awesome. It's like Carlos Santana found his thing 50 years ago and was like, this is great. This is what I'll do. You know, and I think there's something to be said about that where, you know, finding your voice is the most important thing, no matter how you get there. Like Derek Trucks hasn't really changed what Derek Trucks is in 25 years. It's just awesome. You know, Jeff Beck was a bit different in that Jeff Beck was constantly trying to reinvent himself. You know, albums had drastically different scopes of what.
But that was his thing.
But that was his thing, was doing whatever he wanted, you know, and yeah, I think some players use that technique thing as a rite of passage, and I think some players never even get there and have what a lot of people would think would be bad technique, but they make it work for their sound. Like if you needed Stevie Ray Vaughan to play a Chick Corea song, it's not going to go well, but it also doesn't freaking matter, because when he kicks off Crossfire or Pride and Joy, nobody cares. Like it sounds awesome. It's like he found the thing that works for him and delivered upon it, you know, like Eddie Van Halen to me is Mount Rushmore rock guitar player. But even when he was alive, you had Sean Lane and Alan Holdsworth. Like Eddie wasn't even close to the top tier technician on the planet. But why is he the greatest? And that's because, to me, this is my opinion, of course, I think he's the greatest because nobody had more fun playing the electric guitar than Eddie Van Halen. Like when he played guitar, he made it look like envious. Like you look like you're having more fun than everybody else on the planet.
And he probably was.
And he probably was.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's like, yeah, it's, I think some guys, and you could tell that Ed's like rise up the technique thing really plateaued around like 83, 84. Like he kind of done all of the tricks that he was going to continue to use in his career. And he just wrote great songs from that point versus, I don't know, someone who's trying to do a new technique, you know, all the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, technique is just, it's a different thing to every different person. And some guys will use it as a rite of passage, and some guys will get into gatekeeping, right? Like the jazz community can be very gatekeeping and a metal community can too, right?
Sure.
Like there's a lot of that, but I don't know. It's like, I think you could have 300 different interviews and have 300 different answers. But to me, it's very much, it was just technique is like, you know, like this capo, like if I need it, I want it. But if I don't need it, I'm just going to set it on the desk and not use it. You know, that's old me talking. First record me was like, I wanted the fastest thing. I had to have a song that was over 200 BPM, 16th notes, right? I had to have a song in 11 that used diminished harmony. I had to have a 7-string song with all these odd meters. Like, I was working off of a checklist on my first record. Then it was very much like, look what I can do. And this new record is like, I don't care what you think I can do. Do you like this song? Here's a song, you know?
So speaking of finding your voice, when I had Zach Wild on here, we talked about this, and it ended up being a controversial topic. It's not to me, but I'm curious your opinion on this. So what we talked about was that he and I actually are of the same mind, that you only have X amount of time on Earth.
Yeah.
And X amount of time in a day that you can focus. So with music, where you have infinite possibilities, if there's something that turns you on, that's going to keep you coming back to the instrument, do that. Regardless of if you go to school and they're telling you to learn this stuff you don't care about, if like that's making you not want to play, then just don't do that stuff. Especially if there is something that gets you going and keeps you coming back over and over and over and over, because at the end of the day, the only way to make this work is to keep coming back to the instrument over and over and over. So it's not necessarily an anti-school or an anti-theory or anti-jazz or anti-whatever argument, because if you love that stuff or you're into learning that stuff, great. But if you're not, and there is something else that gets you going, or if that is the stuff that gets you going, but the context of the argument was we were talking about two things. I was talking about how I dropped out of Berkeley because I hated jazz, hated it, and I didn't feel like it hurt me musically at all. I just knew that when I would learn it, I would want to throw the guitar away. So I decided to learn other things. And he talked about how with his style, he figured out that part of it was there were all these other dudes that were known for something. Like Yngwie was known for harmonic minor. Steve Vai was known for that crazy shit. Zach wanted to have something that was his own, and the blues-based thing is what he's the most attracted to. He can do other things, but so he made the decision that this is going to triple down on that.
It's like cultivating your strength, right?
Yeah, and it served him well. So we put out that episode, and a lot of people were like, "Thank you. I like hated school, but I like practiced 12 hours a day at this thing that I do, and now I have a career as a guitar player." I had several professionals thanking us for the episode, but then I had a whole other group of people who said that it was a super negative message, like an anti-learning message to put out there.
I think the truth is it's both.
Yes, that's right.
That's really in my opinion, it can be very anti-learning. I know people that refuse to try to improve their playing because they're like, oh, this sucks. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to sound like that. And I'm like, hey, man, because you're going to try to learn one lick from Wes Montgomery, there's no danger in the world
There's no danger.
you ever sounding like Wes Montgomery, ever. You know what I'm saying? And they got it in their mind that like, oh, that's not cool. That's not, and you go, man, like, yeah, it is cool to learn. And maybe there's some kind of turnaround or enclosure that you can incorporate into that 7-string sweep tap that you're going to play Friday night at the metal club. Like you can, well, blending all the things and distilling it down is what makes you, you. And chasing passion is the other side of the coin that you guys were talking about. I think that's the truth too. Like you've got to find your voice. Like when I was in college, nobody was more passionate about jazz than Donald Brown and Mark Bowling. Those are my jazz teachers at UT. I just didn't love Charlie Parker tunes as much as they did, you know? And I like Charlie Parker tunes, and I've learned them. There's videos of me playing them, it's like, but it's not like my statement in life is not, I'm a jazz player. My favorite guitar is not a 175. My favorite guitars are Tellys, and it's like, yeah, mine are hopped up and they got humbuckers and tremolo, but like, I'm a Telly guy. Like that's,
but you didn't hate it.
I mean, yeah, I think maybe that's a big point here is like, I never really hate too much as far as music goes. Like it really has to be awful for me to hate it. And in this point in my career, things that make me hate it is actually not the quality of the execution. It's how contrived is it? Because I'm a session guy, and it's like, I know when something's been stamped out and they've pushed it out because that person looks correctly wearing the right jeans, or she's got a, nice hair or whatever. It's like, I can tell when stuff's manufactured.
Well, I'm thinking back to being 19.
That's what I don't like is when it's manufactured. And ironically, is a lot of the manufactured stuff has the best players in Nashville playing on it,
Oh, yeah. Like, the execution. The execution's
incredible. Yeah. And so I think I mean, like, I think anyone listening to this should step daily outside of their comfort zone and just have a morsel of something that's not what you love. Because how can you find new things to love if you're never trying?
Absolutely.
You've got to always just take a bite on the buffet of music, of something that you've not heard before, or don't like, or whatever, don't even know about. You just got to like take a bite out of it and see if it's something that's worth investing your time into. And I think that probably in the nature of school, you don't have enough time to invest into that energy because curriculum is very strict. And also at school, you have to do things that aren't music. Like at University of Tennessee, I had to take like foreign language and Western Civ and all this stuff. Like I for sure don't care about, mathematics. Like that's not really my thing, So I was, that's where I had a problem with school. I was actually, not the biggest jazz head, but I like playing guitar, and I'd be in a guitar circle with anybody in any genre. I think if there's anything that's my voice, it's probably from that perspective of like, oh, there's a guitar over there. I play, can I sit in? And like, regardless of genre of music, but I have a wide palette. Like I really like, if I were to name my top favorite pieces of music, there's not a lot of them that are going to be predictable. Like I think Nessun Dorma Pavarotti is one of the most beautiful melodies of all time. Like anything from the Star Wars soundtrack is brilliant. Anything from John Williams is mega brilliant, top tier brilliant. I don't think people would really see that one coming. And then it gets into, my bluegrass background with Bela Fleck and Tony Rice is maxed out. And then of course the things that are obvious are the Steve Morse, Eric Johnson influences, right? But to me, it's about just having a little bite of things. Like I don't love every Rush song, but I like listening to Rush when they're on, right? Mm-hmm. There's Van Halen songs that aren't my favorite Van Halen songs.
Well, I think what you're saying though is different than what I was saying to run away from, because when you commit to something like school, you're committing to years and years and years, and the time factor. That's why I brought up the time factor at the beginning. Limited time on Earth. If you're going to commit to something that's going to take years of your life, if you hate it, it's probably going to have negative effects on your overall commitment to the instrument. So my argument is just don't enter yourself into programs or go down paths because other people tell you should, that you hate, because it'll have negative long term, it'll have negative effects on your own relationship with the instrument. However, I'm no way, shape, or form saying don't step outside your comfort zone.
It's definitely trying it, right? So like, here's the great thing about college, you can quit whenever.
Yes.
So if you're on the fence about Berklee, go to Berklee for a semester. Yeah. Like go take a bite out of it. And, Dream Theater, John Mayer, these are Berklee dropouts. So it's like, you can go there and be exposed to stuff. Yeah, man. You can go and be exposed to things, and that can alter your course. Some of my dearest friends in the music industry are guys that I met at the University of Tennessee that I still work with to this day. Daniel Kimbrough plays bass with Jerry Douglas and Bela Fleck and all these superstars. And Kimbrough, I still work with Kimbrough. You know what I mean? We met 20 years ago, So it's like, there's some really great things about that. I think you just have to be in the right mind space of here's the mistake of youth is not knowing what you want. And you're just swinging, you know what I mean? I think that's where that comes from. And then if you end up really hating something, you've swung in the wrong direction for a little too long,
Did you know what you wanted?
I knew I wanted to play. And I didn't know how to facilitate that. And the reason I stayed at the University of Tennessee was because the girl I was dating went to UT.
I mean, good enough reason. But from the way you're describing yourself, though, it's like, in terms of finding yourself, it sounds to me like everyone I've met who kind of does what you do, the session stuff, along with their own solo guitar stuff, but who can play with several artists, go to the studio for anybody, and it's just they're capable of always being in a different musical environment, and they thrive in that. You kind of have to have that mentality that you've got of like never hating it if you're playing guitar, like of always being interested in it if it's guitar, or being happy to play with anybody. Like that's like the exact right kind of mentality. Like, I think if you have like I want to have the nastiest black metal band of all time mentality, and that's just my life. That's not the same the same personality as someone who's going to be a session player. And right. It's not better or worse. It's just know yourself.
And yourself can change. This is something
yes.
I used to be so happy being a guy that played for artists and doing sessions. And man, the more I did that, people would invite me out to play and do my own stuff, the more I got addicted to that. And I now it's like I'm very blessed to be at a point where it's like I'm doing my own stuff, and it's like I only play with artists that I genuinely like them. Like, if anybody in Nashville calls, I have to like your music, or the answer is no.
That's amazing, though.
And that wasn't where I was. And I got there because I started doing more gigs, and my brand, or my sound, my statement grew into a position where that became, the thing. And you, like you said, it's like knowing yourself, but knowing that yourself can change and what you want changes. And for me, it's like, I just want to play the things that I want to play. And if you tell me that you're going to put me on a plane, we're going to fly to a big venue, and I'm going to play Life is a Highway and What Hurts the Most and these smash hits for 85 minutes. Like, like when I work with Gary and or even with the Flats as a band in, 15, 16, working with Gary for the past couple of years, we go out and we play 85, 90-minute set, and we can't play all their number ones. Like, there's not enough time.
That's crazy.
So we're choosing which number ones we play. Like, that's a gig that any guitar player that likes to play good guitar and have, it's like, that's a dream gig, because everything is a smash hit. You're just kicking off smash hit after smash hit. It's so fun, right? But like, outside of that, I get this mega high from playing to 200 people in Nashville, being on stage with Brent Mason because he agreed to come set in at my show, my childhood hero, you know what I mean? And I'm playing for 200 guitar nerds playing guitar music. Like, that's a different kind of adrenaline rush that I really love too. And that's like my thing that is like my statement, And so that's the goal with this whole new record, is just to be like, what is it? If I die today, I don't want to be measured on Junktown. That was my previous record from 2019. And so, like, if I die today, what is it that I leave behind? And I hope people listen to Charisma. It's like, yeah, man, this guy's got something. Like, I think that's what I think about. I just want people to listen to these tunes and feel something. And that's a more lofty goal than putting out a record going, oh, I can't wait for somebody to try to transcribe this. Like, that's a lower goal. Like, I can't wait for just a certain percentage of people to be blown away by this one lick, 8 seconds in a 45-minute record, right? It's like, that's not it. I want people to hear a song and feel it, and like, dang, man, why am I humming this song? It's like taking musicality seriously is something that a lot of guitar players don't do. They take guitar seriously. They don't take musicality seriously. And let me give you a great example of this. Any person, I was just in Orlando. I like to go to ride roller coasters, and I like theme parks and stuff.
Those are fun.
Yeah, it's my favorite. So like walking around, when people hear the Harry Potter theme, everybody in the park is like, they're entrenched in it. These are not musicians. That melody's just that strong. And when you're crossing the bridge and you go into Jurassic Park, or you hear, Wish Upon a Star inside the Disney parks, it's like the music is one of the main sensory organs that the everyday civilian, they don't realize that's such a big part of the magic. That's where musicality is put at this top tier level. It's like cinematics, encompassing TV shows, theme parks, anything that's like meant for the civilian, not the non-guitar player, the non-musician, the non-metal lover, the non-whatever, you know what I mean? Non-bluegrass guy, whatever. It's just good music to be out there for people. That's where I try to pull a lot of inspiration from John Williams. It's like, man, he writes melodies that everybody remembers. That's how great they are. And they supersede complexity. Like the Harry Potter score is extremely complex, especially that first chair violin part. Like it's like a shred guitar thing, right? And then Jurassic Park score is pretty straight down the pike, pretty simple melody, but they both have that impact on the listener. And that's how you use your colors and your technique to connect with people that don't play. And to me, the most important thing I can do, most important message that I can send with this record is like, man, you do not have to be a guitar player to get something from this. I just want you to feel something. If you're the sister or the girlfriend that came with the guy to my show, I want you to be surprised that you can have a good time at a guitar show. And I think that's where you see, that's that lofty goal. I don't know if I may not ever hit my goal, but my goal is to have
It's a good goal though.
That is the goal, right? I watched Tommy Emmanuel connect with people that don't care how good he is at guitar. They just connect with him because he connects, Jeff Beck, Dwayne Allman, Carlos Santana has a very limited vocabulary as far as a musician, pretty limited. And that's not a slam. That's actually a big compliment. Look how limited his vocabulary is, and look how many millions of people he can reach.
Yeah, it's this crazy thing. So we shot this Riffhard course with Zach, and so spent like a week with him filming, and he had this like shitty little practice amp that he brought with him that he takes everywhere. Still sounds fucking incredible. But one thing that I paid attention to was, we had a whole film crew and lots of people there who were not guitar players. They were just crew people who we had hired through a production company, just because we
like
needed
grips and stuff.
Yeah. Like everyone at my company are all about what we do, but
right.
for this we had a lot of extra help. But the moment he started playing, everyone was just transfixed, and there was like nothing else to really say other than it was just magnetic.
Yeah. And if you look across the scope, the people that are magnetic, I can open Instagram and swipe it 3 times and see 20 players that are mind-bogglingly technical, like incredible players. I'm going to screen record it. I'm going to learn everything I can from it. Like, I love the challenge. But when it's time to make your statement, you've got to be more focused that music is a gift, and it is a conversational, it's a language, and it's a gift, and you're giving something to people that are in a room with you. They're not there to glorify you. You're there to give them what you've got, right? And if you look across the scope, man, when Neil Schon kicks off Lights at a Journey show, you got 20,000 people in there, and maybe 300 play guitar, maybe 200, and you got another 19,600 people that are hooked. Like, engulfed in this riff before. I mean, like when Slash kicks off "Sweet Child of Mine," that's a hit song before the vocals even drop. Like when that intro hits, that's it, man. Like "Welcome to the Jungle." I mean, like, you know, like Zach, man, with "No More Tears," when that guitar comes in, it's like, I mean, "Mama, I'm Coming Home." Like that first intro, you're in. Like you're in. And then the song's job is just not to rob you of the, like, pulling you in right at the top, right? So it's like, those are the kind of things that really matter to me now. And I still love to chase technique, but I think it's just, that's a little bit more to rev me up for the day. I want to be challenged. I want to be pushed. I want to see something that I can't do. And 20 minutes later, I want to be able to do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that's not at all what goes into my mind when I open up a Logic session. It's time to create a song. It's a completely different mentality.
Makes sense. I think that's a good place to end the episode, man. I think that's a nice period on the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
But good luck with Charisma, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me on here.
Anytime.